Alrighty, the sun is shining for the first time in a long time. It is warm enough that I don't need a jacket, and there's no snow falling from the sky. So, figured I'd film outside today. It's been a pretty brutal winter, but it feels like it's coming to an end, luckily. So, as a disclaimer to this video, the PCT is generally extremely safe. For the most part, there's not much to worry about as long as you take a couple precautions and aren't totally careless in what you're doing. However, there are definitely some things that can be out of your control, which are good to be careful about, be wary about, and yeah, just pay attention to when you're out there, because it could ruin your day, or it could ruin your hike, could ruin your life. All right, so going in chronological order, in Southern California, the only thing I was really worried about was rattlesnakes, and that's because I know that there are bears and there are mountain lions out there, but it's exceedingly rare to run into them, and for the most part they will leave you alone if you're not bothering them. So rattlesnakes was my only fear, and luckily I only had two pretty close encounters. One was extremely close, and that was the first time on trail that my heart really started racing, and I thought, I just barely missed out on getting bit by a snake. I was just a couple miles from hiker town, maybe 4 or 5 miles out, coming down a hill and moving pretty quick, not paying attention to what's going on. And I am about to put my foot down and I hear a crazy loud rattling noise. And within a fraction of a second, I look down, my brain registers that I am just about to step on a giant rattlesnake. And yeah, all within a fraction of a second, jumped off the trail, ran down the little slope. You know, it was one of those where the trail's flat, you got a downhill over here and an uphill over here, so I jump off and I run down this hill. Luckily didn't injure myself doing that. Caught my breath and breathed a sigh of relief and carried on. Luckily I was only a couple miles from civilization, like I said, but if you were in the middle of nowhere and you got bit by a snake, that could not be good. Luckily in Southern California, you're probably the closest to civilization at any point in time, anywhere along the trail. But there are definitely stretches out there where it could take you hours or maybe a day to get to a road or something. So that was my first extremely close call. Made me incredibly uncomfortable and on edge for snakes for the next couple of days. Yeah, worrying about snakes is one of those things you do for like 10 or 15 minutes, like very actively, and then you just kind of zone back out again. And you don't think about it until you almost step on one. And then you go back to being on guard. Zoning out while you're walking is almost inevitable, so it is it's just one of those things. You just got to be careful, and hopefully if you get too close, they will warn you before you step on them. All right, my next scariest moment was in the Sierras. I camped just short of Forester Pass, and that was one of my favorite nights. It's a beautiful place to camp. I was again out there by myself, and the next morning I woke up. I went to do Forester Pass by myself. I wanted to do it in the morning so that the snow was, you know, not real slushy and all that good stuff. And yeah, just the pass in general just made me pretty uncomfortable. That's kind of the first time in the Sierra that I remember anyways, where if you slip and you get into an uncontrolled slide, there's not a lot you can do at that point. So the stakes are pretty high. Not to say that it was, you know, super treacherous by any means, but again, being from the Midwest, from Ohio, snowy mountains, not really my forte. So that kind of put me on edge, and once I got through the snow, obviously I made it across and it was fine. But once I did get across the snow, I took a second once I was back on dirt and rock and just kind of sat down and let my legs recover and let my mind reset and say, all right, made it through that. We're back on normal ground, good to go. But it was very nerve-wracking. That was the first time in the snowy mountains where I was like, if I mess up here, this could be the end of it. So yeah, you just got to be careful no matter where you're at in the Sierra when the snow is like that. And if you are super uncomfortable, I would even recommend bypassing some of those sections, because if you don't know what you're doing and you slip and fall, that's it. As a side note, something I just remembered while filming this is that Mount San Jacinto in that area can be very treacherous depending on when you go with the snow. So I bypassed San Jacinto as a whole. Initially, I went back and did it later, but there was a good group of us that just skipped it, and there were some people that went on and did it, and they brought ice axes, and when I eventually linked up with them later on, they said it was pretty brutal. A lot of post holing. One guy had a fall. Luckily he self-arrested, but he said after that he regretted going up there. Obviously went through it and made it through, but don't be fooled by San Jacinto. There are some sketchy sections up there, and again, if you don't know what you're doing, just skip it, come back to it another time. It is not going to be worth your life. All right, so after making it through the Sierra, the next time that I genuinely feared for my well-being was in Northern California. It was shortly after the park fire had started, maybe like 2 or 3 days before the park fire had just started. I got to Old Station, which was right after the Lassen Volcanic National Park, or Lassen National Park, whatever. And the air quality wasn't great. There was some smoke in the air, but it wasn't like crazy bad. And so I get to Old Station, and there were some other hikers there, and they were talking about skipping up to go to Bernie because the air quality was bad. And it was understandable at that point. I didn't think it was super hazardous, but in the event that someone wanted to skip up, it was definitely understandable. So anyway, I decided to hike out of Old Station and try to hike to Bernie. And I got maybe 10 or 11 miles out from Old Station, and what started as a kind of hazy day turned into a complete blackout of smoke within like an hour. The sun was shining, and then it became dimmer, and then it became an orange ball, and then it totally disappeared. My range of view was maybe 50 or 75 yards tops. It was just, the smoke just rolled in like crazy. And it was pretty far away, but you know, if there's strong winds blowing, they can cover hundreds or thousands of square miles a day. At that point, it was so bad that you probably shouldn't have been standing there, let alone camping there and breathing that junk in all night. So I really had two options, and that was carry on to Bernie and have an almost 40-mile day, or turn around and backtrack 11 miles to Old Station and try and hitch out of there at night. This was one of those situations that probably would have been a lot less worrisome had I been with someone. But again, I was out there by myself, no cell service, I don't know what's going on. I am making my own decisions, which usually is a positive, but now I'm fighting the internal battle of, okay, should I just carry on or should I backtrack? I don't know what to do, blah, blah, blah. So I waste some time deciding what to do. And anyways, I ended up backtracking, but while I was backtracking, going back to Old Station, it just kept getting worse. And the smoke was so bad. I have no idea where the fire is. I can't see across the valley anymore. It was just a wall of smoke. So in my head, I thought this fire could be raging this direction extremely fast, and I would have no idea until it was too late. So I ended up doing like a walk jog, pretty quick, 11 miles or whatever it was, back. That was the first time where I really considered, you know, what would it be like to get caught in a wildfire? What would I even do? Like, what, you're not going to outrun it, you know? So all these thoughts are going through my head of how I would deal with this should I turn the corner and see that, you know, the entire forest is on fire. Plus, here's the other thing. Where I was walking, it was just a giant field of dead grass and dead trees. I mean, one ember could have lit that entire place up and I would have just been totally engulfed. So maybe the initial fire wouldn't spread that far, but anything could have happened, and where I was specifically, that whole place would have went up like a tinderbox. So yeah, that one was scary. Not my favorite day on trail. Didn't make any trail progress. Ended up camping at Old Station anyways because I couldn't get a hitch out of there. Breathed in smoke all night long, and then ended up going to Bernie anyways. So really, it was just a waste of a day and a scary experience for no good reason. All right, compared to getting caught in the middle of a record-breaking wildfire, this might sound silly, but the next time after that I was worried for my health or safety was again in Northern California, shortly after Mount Shasta. I was camping and there were cows around, like the farm animals. But right before I set up camp, I saw one maybe like 200 or 300 meters away, and I could hear its cowbell, but it was very faint, and there was like one of them, maybe two of them. So anyway, I set up camp, and there's a good amount of people around. There's probably 8 or 9 other people at this campsite. It was just kind of like an open field. Naturally, I'm cowboy camping, duh. As I'm laying there, like just after dinner, like in between dinner and getting ready for bed, I start hearing multiple cowbells, and then it gets louder, and then there's more of them, and then that gets louder. And eventually this entire herd of cows shows up to this campsite, like dozens of cows. And they start kind of meandering through this field, and the other people are kind of laughing about it, whatever. And I was set a ways away by myself. And it was kind of funny during the day, you know. They were just minding their own business. But then I went to bed, and it got dark out, and so I couldn't see the cows. And all I'm hearing are these cowbells all around me, and I'm just laying in this field. And I couldn't fall asleep because I was worried that I was going to get trampled. And I don't know exactly what was out there, but every 20 or 30 minutes, they would all start running in unison. Like they would stampede through the campsite. I don't know if there was an animal or if they were just regrouping or what, but I'd be laying there kind of like very cautious about what's immediately around me. And then suddenly I would just hear like 50 cows just trampling straight through this field. Now, could this situation have been avoided had I picked a better campsite? 1000% yes. But I didn't really think that that would be an issue. I've never had that experience. There were a lot of other people there, so whatever, it's a marked campsite on Far Out. But yeah, I couldn't sleep all night. And then at like 2 in the morning, I had just maybe gotten like 1 solid hour of sleep. And then I hear the cowbells coming closer, they're coming back. And I'm like, damn it. Should I just get up and start hiking? Like, I'm not gonna sleep well at all. Anyways, I ended up not getting up and packing up and hiking out because it was just before the Oregon border and I wanted to do that in the morning. So I just kind of laid there all night, didn't sleep very well, and just kind of hoped that I didn't get trampled by cows. But I was genuinely afraid, especially when they were stampeding. You have no idea where they're at. They could come over and step right on you and ruin your day. Now, as this beautiful sunshine has reminded me, the thru hiking season is almost upon us, so I'll probably only do 1 or 2 more videos like this about the PCT, and then jump back into just regular backpacking content. I want to do a Q&A, or if I don't get enough questions, I'll just go off answering some questions on Reddit, and then probably a very quick last-minute tips and tricks video, and then transition back into normal backpacking stuff. So appreciate you guys watching. Leave a comment down below if you have a scary situation that you experienced, or you can relate to anything that I said. That would be nice to know. I look forward to seeing you guys on the next one, and if you have anything you'd like me to address on the Q&A video, leave that down below as well. All right, thanks again for watching, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one.